morning, guys. It is a beautiful Monday morning here in Sydney, Australia, and I am finally out of Instagram jail. Yay. It was I'd been locked up in their jail for about 4 weeks, unable to do any Instagram lives, but I am back now. But I will not be interviewing anybody today, as I've been doing for the last few weeks, interviewing women that are women's empowerment coaches and psychologists and parenting and all that. I'm not going to be interviewing anybody today. It's just going to be me talking because, as you know, or as some of you know, I launched my Self-Love for Permanent Weight Loss course last week. And I've started with a couple of girls who have enrolled for the course. And I'm already seeing some really crucial, important things that need to be shared with the rest of the world, because there's so much unawareness out there. And this is what I'm starting to realize more and more through doing this Self-Love for Permanent Weight Loss course with my clients, is that most people are not self-aware. Most people have no idea what sort of relationship they have with themselves or what sort of relationship they have with food. Most people are just repeating the mistakes of their parents without even noticing it. We're all on autopilot. So whatever we saw as children, the way that our parents treated us, is the way that we are inadvertently treating ourselves without the awareness of it. So if you are somebody who grew up saying, I'm never going to treat my kids like that, I'm going to be such a much better parent than my mother or my father, or I'm going to do things differently, or I'm going to let my kids do whatever. Any of those statements that you made growing up because you saw your parents do things that you didn't approve of or you didn't like or that really upset you, those are just words. You may not want to end up like them, but without self-awareness, inadvertently, you will turn out just like them. And you may not notice it until you've had kids and you're in a stressful situation, and then you realize that actually, in moments of stress, you're going into autopilot and you're doing exactly what your parents did to you. You're losing your temper the same way, you're punishing your kids the same way, and things need to change. So, the amazing thing about this course, good evening, Rahma, hey, in Egypt, how are you? So the important thing about this course, or the best thing about this course, is that it creates that foundation of self-awareness. So what I'm discovering with a lot of my female clients is that they don't know how mean they really are to themselves. They have no idea how mean they are to themselves. And when I go through with them and I ask them things like, what do you say to yourself when you look in the mirror? What do you say to yourself when you start a diet and you fall off the wagon with the diet and stuff up your diet? What do you say to yourself when you have a big goal to achieve and you fail at it? What do you say to yourself? And the things that they're discovering they say to themselves are things that their parents used to say to them when they were young. Things like, and this is in Arabic, like "Inti ghabiya," like that, or things like you're an idiot, you're a loser, you're not going to amount to anything, you're a piece of shit. And for some of you hearing this, it might be really shocking to even know that some parents speak this way to their kids, but it's true. A lot of parents are not that well equipped to be parents, and that's mostly the last generation. I think our parents knew nothing about human psychology or how to raise kids and create a sense of security for them. Our parents did what their parents did. They beat us, they hit us, they pushed us to the ground, they spat on us, they called us names, they grounded us, wouldn't let us do anything except for go to school and church and home. That's it. And that's how that generation, at least my parents' generation, felt they should raise the kids, to keep them under control, to keep them disciplined, to hit them, to beat them, to put them down verbally, emotionally, mentally, all of those things. So that generation of parents did not know how to do parenting correctly. And as a result, a lot of us in this generation have issues that we are unaware of. Self-esteem issues, self-worth issues, just a lot of things or roadblocks that we are unaware of that are even there. So once I started this course with a couple of my clients and they started to identify some of the things that they say to themselves, it was quite shocking for them. Not shocking for me, because I've been through the same process. I know that a lot of us are very mean to ourselves. But when I got them to actually write down some of the things that they say to themselves, they were shocked at how cruel they were to themselves. And when I asked them, all right, imagine you said this to your child, or imagine you said this to somebody else's child, how do you think people would react? أيوة أنا بتكلم بالعربية بس this is all English today, it's not Arabic today, sorry Rahma. So I lost my train of thought now, but essentially, if your parents treated you a certain way because they didn't know enough about human psychology and they put you down thinking that this was the way to protect you, or for example with one of my clients, her mom used to tell her, oh, you're never going to win that, or you're never going to get that, and it wasn't because her mother didn't love her, it's because her mother thought that she was protecting her from massive disappointment. But her mother didn't understand human psychology enough to know that what she was doing to her daughter was creating a lot of self-doubt in her daughter, that her daughter has carried on with her like 20 years down the line, and now it's affecting her life in the sense that she doesn't strive for things that she wants to, because she doesn't believe in her ability to achieve them. So what we do in the self-love course in module 1 is we create self-awareness. We start identifying the things that we say to ourselves. How are we talking to ourselves? And this is what I was saying earlier when I lost my train of thought, is if you take what you say to yourself and say it to someone else, or if you take what you do to yourself and do it to someone else, that's how you will identify if what you're doing is right or wrong. So for example, I went through a whole decade of my life where I would punish myself by starving myself. So if I ate a lot and I felt like fat and ugly, then I would punish myself by denying myself food the next day. Now, imagine if I did this to my son. Imagine if he came home one day and I put food in front of him and he ate the whole plate, and then he went into the cupboard and ate some chocolate, and then imagine that I turned to my son after he's eaten all this food, and imagine if I said to him, you're a fat piece of shit. I can't believe you ate all that food and then went to the cupboard and had more chocolate. You're not going to get any food tomorrow. Imagine if I did to my son what I used to do to myself. Punish myself with starvation. Put myself down with horrible words like that. But where did I learn this from? I learned this from my parents. I learned this from bullies at school. I learned this from our entire society that shames people for being overweight. So unless we create that self-awareness and take a moment to reflect back on our youth and understand the things that really affected us and reprocess them. So for example, this client of mine reprocessing the event where her mother told her, oh, this thing that you're going for, you're not going to get it. So her reprocessing that as an adult to understand that mum wasn't trying to put me down. Mum was expressing her own self-doubt and trying to protect me from massive disappointment in case I don't get it. Versus how she had initially interpreted it, which is, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to achieve anything in life, which has negatively impacted her life now 20 years later. But once you go back and you reprocess things as an adult with your fully matured and developed brain, then you can start to recognize that the actions and words of others were more a reflection of them than you. And so you can get rid of the hurt that you internalized at a young and vulnerable age when you really didn't understand the full picture. So creating that self-awareness, going back into your past, opening up Pandora's box, and I know that's scary. A lot of people don't want to open up Pandora's box. It's scary as hell because you're opening up like past wounds that we've all spent so much time shoving down and suffocating and just going, oh no, everything's fine. No, I'm fine. Oh yeah, what happened in your childhood? What happened with your dad? Oh yeah, my dad used to fucking beat me with a fucking belt. And you know, this person over here used to spit on me and push me to the ground. Oh, but I'm all right now. I'm fine now. No, you're not okay. You're not fine. If you've experienced this sort of trauma in your childhood, in your youth, when you were vulnerable, when you needed people to protect you and they betrayed you, especially people who are supposed to love you, like your parents, If you've been betrayed like that in your youth and you've been abused, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional, mental, financial, any of those sorts of abuse, it is not okay to continue in your life and just be like, oh yeah, that was a long time ago, everything's fine. Because the amount of damage that caused in your brain is real. And unless you go back and reprocess those events as an adult, the damage will still remain. You will stay there with the false interpretation of the event that you made at a young, vulnerable age. So at a young age, say, somebody raped you, okay? Let's say your uncle raped you, for example, at a young, vulnerable age, and your uncle told you not to tell anybody because you'd get into trouble and that people would shame you for being too attractive or whatever. And you grow up thinking that your being attractive caused this sexual abuse. And you spend the rest of your life afraid to be attractive, hiding yourself, blaming yourself for the abuse that happened to you when you were really, really young. So going back and reprocessing that to understand that my uncle clearly had some issues of his own that he had not dealt with. And he made me pay the price for that. This isn't me story, by the way. This is just an example story. So going back and re-evaluating or reprocessing events and seeing them as they really are as a mature adult to identify that the actions of somebody towards you was a reflection of them, not you and your worth, is crucial. Because otherwise, that story remains the same. And whilst you might keep sweeping it under the rug and thinking, oh, it was such a long time ago, like I'm over, everything's fine. And a lot of guys do this because guys don't want to talk about difficult things, because to talk about difficult things means that there's hurt. It means that there's vulnerability. It means that there's a need for help. And a lot of guys don't want to admit this. A lot of guys will just be like, oh yeah, my parents beat me, yeah, but I'm fine. And they don't talk about it. And they don't realize, and women also do this, of course, but people who don't go back and reprocess these events don't realize that what's going to happen is once they have kids, they will be repeating the patterns of their parents. Maybe not all day, every day, but in moments of stress, in moments of lack of sleep or anxiety or any one of those things, when hard times come knocking on your door, you will go into autopilot and repeat the mistakes of your parents with your own kids. So do yourself a favor and start working on your self-awareness. Start working on, how is it that I talk to myself? What do I say to myself? Am I looking in the mirror and calling myself a piece of shit? Am I looking in the mirror and telling myself, oh, you're so ugly, you look horrible in that? Am I avoiding projects and promotions at work because I have it in my mind that I'm a loser, like my dad told me I was going to be, and I'm never going to amount to anything? So you have to identify, what am I saying to myself? Where did this come from? Is this something my parents said to me, or bullies at school said to me, or my guardian said to me, or my sister said to me, or somebody influential when I was young and vulnerable said this to me, and I have now internalized it, made it my truth, and I am perpetuating that false belief that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy, that I'm not going to amount to anything, that I'm not going to lose the weight, that nobody wants me, that I'm unlovable, all of those things. So please do yourself a favor. Be more self-aware. Listen to the things that you say to yourself. Identify, what sort of relationship do I have with myself? And if you can't figure it out just by writing down what you notice you say to yourself, then take what you notice you say to yourself and ask yourself if it would be okay for you to say those things to someone else, to another stranger. Because if it's not okay, like if it's not okay for me to punish a client for ruining her diet by telling her she's not allowed to eat tomorrow, then I know that I should not have been doing that to myself, punishing myself for overeating by starving myself the next day. That's abuse. That's abuse. And most of us are going through life actually abusing ourselves and completely unaware of it, abusing ourselves with the way we talk to ourselves and the way that we treat ourselves as well. And we don't share this with people because there's shame around it, right? Like, I don't generally go around telling people that, yeah, I feel like shit today and I feel so unlovable and so unworthy and like I'm going to amount to nothing and that I'm a failure. I don't go around sharing this stuff with people because there's so much shame around it, but I have the awareness to know that when I'm down, when I'm stressed, when I'm anxious, when I put too much on my plate, when I feel like I've lost control, that I'm going to go into those habits of negative self-talk. And having that awareness doesn't mean that it's not going to happen, that I'm not going to put myself down. Of course, there will still be times when I put myself down, but the awareness is there for me to then put a hold to it and go, all right, Marlene, you're being really mean to yourself right now. You shouldn't be saying these things to yourself. What are some things you can do right now to make yourself feel better? And I have a list of things that I do. I play some music, I sing in the shower, I have a bath, I go for a walk with the baby in the pram. I have a list of friends that I can call and speak to. So it's not to say that once you have the self-awareness, you're never going to treat yourself poorly, but at least you're aware of when you're treating yourself poorly, and you can over time improve the relationship you have with yourself and improve the way that you interact with yourself or with your inner child. Because again, if we don't, we end up repeating the mistakes of our parents. No matter how many times we say, I'm never going to be like mom, I'm never going to raise my voice like dad, I'm never going to treat my kids like that, I'm going to let my kids have all the freedom in the world. But again, when stress comes calling, we all go into autopilot and repeat the mistakes of our parents because that's the only example that was set for us. So if you are somebody who has struggled to lose weight for a long time, especially if you are a female who has poor self-worth or body image issues, if you have lost weight and put it on 101 times or lost weight and put on more than you lost, then this Self-Love for Permanent Weight Loss course was designed specifically for you. But whether or not you want to lose weight, this course is so life-changing. Honestly, I'm already seeing it change the lives of my clients who have just started, who are still in module 1 of 3. And I can already see their relationship with themselves changing because of that awareness. And I see their eyes opening up and going, oh my God, yeah, I do say that to myself. I'm so mean to myself. I would never say that to somebody else's child. Oh my God, I would be in jail if I said that to somebody else's child. And once they start to create that self-awareness that they're really mean to themselves and that they really put themselves down, then they can start to make a change. But most people have no idea that when they fall off the wagon with their meal plan or with their diet, that they're beating themselves up mentally the whole way home. And they're saying things like, fuck it, I'm a loser, I'm never gonna make it anyway, and that sends them into a downward spiral where they, stop off at the server or at the convenience store and buy a whole box of donuts and just go home and say, fuck it, and they just reaffirm to themselves that they're losers. Say I'm never gonna lose the weight, I'm a piece of shit, and they eat, and they stuff their faces. By the way, I used to do this too, this is how I know this. They stuff their faces and they feel disgusting, and then they go to bed hating themselves, and they wake up the next day hating themselves, saying, again, all those horrible things, I'm a piece of shit, and then trying to starve themselves all day or deny themselves food all day as punishment. So let's put an end to those detrimental self-sabotaging habits, and let's create some self-awareness that will give you more control over your life, over the relationship that you have with yourself, over the way that you treat yourself, over the relationship you have with food, and ultimately more control over your weight loss success. Let's lose the weight, let's keep it off, and let's stop this annual New Year's resolution always being the same. I'm going to lose weight this year. I'm going to lose weight this year. I'm going to lose weight this year. I'm going to lose weight. Aren't we over it? 17 years the average woman spends on diets. So let's put an end to it. Sign up for the course. Start to understand yourself, because that's all that matters, is that you understand yourself and your body and how your body responds to stuff. It doesn't matter about the average person out there or generic diets out there or athletes out there. Nobody gives a shit what their bodies are doing. You should not give a shit what anybody else's body is doing, or how an athlete eats, or what the average person's body does when they're on this diet. You just need to understand you and your body and what your body responds to and how your body reacts to certain things, and then you need to work with your body instead of working against it by forcing it onto extreme or generic diet plans that were not made for you specifically. All right, guys, that's it. I've got a client showing up soon, so I'm going to sign off here. Have a beautiful day, and I will be posting this up on Instagram later, so that if you missed it or you just jumped on now, you can go and watch it all once I've loaded it up online. So just as a quick recap, this was a quick chat about self-love for permanent weight loss and the power of self-awareness and what that can have on your ability to lose weight versus going through life with no self-awareness and constantly beating yourself up and going through patterns of starving yourself and then binging and then punishing yourself with starving yourself again, back and forth, back and forth. So I'm off now, guys. I've got my client showing up. Hey, Dave, nice to see you. Oh, I've got a request. All right, send. I'm going to... All right, guys. Well, I'm going to sign off. Not sure what happened there. IT sometimes lets us down. Sin, if you're still online and you want to try that live again, to go live together, ask some questions, please do. Otherwise, I will sign off in a few minutes because my client has buzzed and will be coming upstairs in a second. All right, guys, have a beautiful, beautiful day. I'm going to post this whole thing up online in the next 15 minutes. So you can still watch it later and get all this helpful information. All right.